listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today my guests are award-winning filmmaker Timothy McGrath and educator Kim Woodruff. And we're going to be discussing a new film entitled Surviving Theater 9. And we'll get into a lot of detail. It's a very moving and touching film. And we'll get into more detail about that. So welcome to the show, Timothy and Kim.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
Well, it's nice to have you here. Timothy, you were the actual person who came up with the concept and the idea of Surviving Theater 9. So our guests know what this film is about. Can you tell them a little bit? And we'll dive deeply into this, but can you give them a brief synopsis of what Surviving Theater 9 is all about?
Sure. It's the story of the survivors of the Batman Theater shooting, and then Kim came into our lives afterwards and kind of helped us through. And as I was kind of going through the process myself, I noticed there was a strong thread of strength and inspiration from my fellow survivors, and I thought it would be a good idea to make a movie about it.
Well, it is interesting on many levels. And Kim, you also are a survivor of a mass shooting. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience?
Yeah. I was a 17-year-old junior at Columbine High School when I was at the shooting there. So I ended up dealing with the pieces of trauma, the PTSD, the anxiety, the depression, the insomnia, all those pieces. And I ended up finding a way to my peace with all of it. And I don't have nightmares, I don't have triggers, nothing. And when Aurora happened, I wanted to be able to help them because no one had gone through what we had gone through. And so I decided that maybe it would be helpful, and it turned out it was really helpful.
So you created a technique or techniques for survivors of not only mass shootings, but probably survivors of anything that would create PTSD. Is that correct?
Yes, with my teachers, Jackie Shumway and Joe Brady, they really helped me create this Tai Chi form. We called it the inner peace form. And the idea behind it is to go back to a place of safety before you move forward. And it was all the pieces that helped me the most, because Tai Chi long form is over 100 moves. So trying to teach that to a beginner is not really possible, especially with somebody who is having memory issues because of the PTSD. So I kind of just took the best pieces and created this form to help everybody, because those were the pieces that helped me most.
Amazing that you were able to create this and come to this and be able to help others with it. We're going to touch some more on that too. So, Timothy, how did you and Kim connect initially?
I was in law school in Los Angeles, and I was having very bad symptoms of PTSD, and to the point where it was affecting day-to-day life. And I was going to the counselors at the school and in Los Angeles, and they weren't quite equipped for something that specific. It was more generalized, or for soldier PTSD, which is, I think, has similar threads, but was maybe different than what I was dealing with at the time. So there was a place called the Aurora Strong Foundation, which was founded in response to the Batman shooting, and they offered free services there. So I would get on the plane and go to Colorado to get therapy, and it was obviously challenging to get therapy that way. So that was sort of the impetus for the movie. Was if I could have just watched something on Netflix or Amazon, that would have been much easier to kind of help figure out what was going on, because it's a very confusing thing. So I think that's in part what I was trying to do with the movie, was help the fog go away as you're trying to get out of PTSD.
And did the process of creating this film, did it help you with that?
Immensely, yeah. I mean, I say it to Kim. Originally, I just wanted to tell Kim's story because it's so inspiring and was so inspiring to all of us. And Kim said, no, not just me. And yeah, so going through this movie to be able to, I mean, it's been 10 years now since the shooting this summer. And to be able to interact with Kim's teachings and Kim's ethos, every time I pick up the script, because obviously it's incredibly challenging in one way. Other survivors trusted me with incredibly, sensitive and difficult and loving parts of their lives. And I was just trying to honor it every step of the way. So it was an immense weight. And then to balance it with Kim and her teachings was pretty special.
Yeah, yes. And it's a very poignant part of the film is watching Kim and her teachings and the survivors. How difficult, because you actually have actors portraying actual people. How difficult was it for you first to interview the survivors? Were they willing to share their stories with you, Tim, when you started out on this project?
Yeah, that was the amazing thing, that was sort of the immediate strength part that I was so attracted to, because it was it was incredibly difficult, obviously, and so I actually put up a camera and just interviewed them like interview style, kind of like we're doing here, and that's where I started to see what was coming out of the experience for them, and it was so valuable and so compelling and so inspirational for me that I just tried to frame a narrative to where you could get into it again if you weren't able to fly to Colorado for therapy. That was sort of my guiding through this, is if I didn't have that option of getting on a plane regularly, what would I want to stream? And so that's how we ended up there.
Doing this. So you chose to have actors portray the survivors. Many are survivors, but other people in your life and other survivors' lives. How did that come about, that you attracted Corbin Bernsen and many others, actually? So and I'll let you talk a little bit about the casting of this film. How did that come about, and why did you make that decision to do it rather than doing it as a documentary? And in a way, it does have the documentary feel, but you do have actors playing these characters. So talk a little bit about that.
Oh gosh, I don't know. The documentary, the idea of doing a documentary just never occurred to me. I felt like, if I'm thinking about it now offhand, I guess I don't know if I could have gotten the emotionality out of it if it was a doc, for me as an artist. And so I just started writing the scenes, kind of the playthrough of the different scenarios that would come up. Each scene is sort of this happens now, and then this happens now, and then we watch. And I was hyper accurate. All the scenes come from the interviews I did. So in that sense, maybe that's helps towards the documentary feel, but all of the scenes were inspired by things that were said in the interviews that I did. So I just sort of took them and translated into, I guess, what I could do as an artist to get the vibe and the emotionality and the healing and the strength, all of that in there. I don't know why I couldn't do that as a documentarian, but that's what we ended up with.
Well, I guess there's a new genre called docudrama, I think, and that's what this is. It's a docudrama, I suppose. I think, or maybe I just created that. I don't know.
Scripted. It's all scripted, so I don't know if it. I don't think it lands into the documentary side because it is all scripted. But
No,
I did take.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I took great pains to make sure that everything came from somewhere.
Yeah, but it's very truthful. But so again, how did you attract the actors that you did? And let's talk a little bit about the cast. You want to tell the audience a little bit about who else is in this film?
Yeah, the cast is amazing. It was all word of mouth. It was really incredible. It was obviously it was before COVID, and everyone was it's a raw topic. It's really hard, and I think that the cast showed up. They responded to the writing, I heard several times, which was nice. And then I think that the idea of doing this to help people, anybody going through a trauma, they can kind of find some comfort in that they're not alone. I think that's it's a big piece for me in this. And so, yeah, the cast is obvious. I mean, the cast is amazing. Everybody's beyond talented, and yeah, it was such a gift to be able to work with them on this kind of material.
Familiar faces that we all have seen. Kim, you are an Edward R. Murrow Award winner for your Columbine Diaries, and the Associated Press published those diaries in over 80 countries. Talk a little bit about that. What were the diaries, and how did that come about for you?
Colorado Public Radio. They asked very nicely right after the shooting. We didn't go to school for about 3 weeks before we went to our rival school to finish out the school year. So it was all very discombobulated in the beginning. They contacted Columbine and asked if anybody would be interested to give a survivor's perspective as to what happened, what it was like to be involved, and to give a real life understanding as to what that grieving. I went to 5 funerals in 1 week. As a 17-year-old, it was a bit. So they gave me a tape recorder, and they said, "Go for it." And so they took 17 hours worth of me just talking into a recorder. I gave it to my twin, who was a library kid, and my boyfriend at the time, Jason, and it kind of became all of our stories as to, this is what that experience is. We think you'd be excited to go on different trips and stuff, but you have this innate fear now of certain sounds and different things you never even connected before. And so it was a way to kind of bring that understanding to the forefront. And so CPR did a great job of, and Dan Dreyer and all of them, they did an amazing job being able to take 17 hours of me into 30 minutes worth of something that connected with a lot of people.
Wow. Again, taking something that was so, I can't even put words to it, actually, so traumatic, and then doing something good with it. And that's what, you hope could come out of this, but obviously it's different for everybody in it. So you're a woman of great inner strength, and to be able to do that, and to also create the program that you did to help other survivors. Tell the audience how you survived the Columbine shooting, if you don't mind.
In what sense? Like what I experienced that day, or after the fact?
Why your life was spared? Why do you think? I mean, I read something. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. But
okay. I was kind. I knew Dylan, and he moved the gun. And I have an identical twin sister. And in the library, they looked under the table and they went to the other table instead. But I think kindness could have been a part of that, but trying to completely understand the mindset of somebody who would do something so atrocious is it's very difficult.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't open up a wound there.
No, you're fine. I've actually been asked that about 100 times.
Yeah.
So, and it still chokes me up every time. So you're fine.
Okay, I'm sure. So we've had many more, unfortunately, since Columbine and Aurora, mass shootings through the years. When you hear about another one, oh, what goes on for each of you? And I'll start with you, Tim. I mean, is that a trigger? What goes on for you?
I wouldn't heighten it to trigger status for me. I think, kudos to Kim for being able to help me manage the emotions that come up and process them correctly. So, the first is, it's always shock. It's a shock, and then there's anger, of course. And my mind jumps immediately to the people that their lives are so different. And that part is, that's hard for me, trying to think of that. Just the upside downness, what their world is. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the response every time.
How about for you, Kim?
For me, when these things happened, for the first 10 years, they were triggering because I was still in process to find my peace. But once I was able to find that and hone it, and for me, peace isn't not having any type of trigger. It's knowing I'm going to come out the other side and I'll be fine. And I don't have nightmares. I don't think about it every day. I don't go to the grocery store thinking that something is going to happen to me. I don't have to look for my 5 exits anymore, things like that. So when another one happens, whether it be in a school, a theater, a concert, grocery stores, wherever, whenever these happen, my heart breaks because I know that there's so many more people that are going to have to go through what I unfortunately had to go through. And I would never want anybody to experience what that is.
We hope that nobody ever has to experience that again, but who knows, the way the world is nowadays, who knows? So do you go to with your training and this program you've created, do you reach out to when there is, unfortunately, another mass shooting somewhere, do you reach out to them to see if you might be able to help them?
I do so through the Rebels Project. The Rebels Project was created by Columbine survivors when Aurora happened to support the Aurora community. And since Aurora, they've kind of become a community for survivors all across the United States. We even are in contact with some people across the world. And I connect with people through that. I connect with people in all sorts of weird and interesting ways. Like I would be out somewhere and somebody would ask me a question, or I'll see somebody just like go into a trigger and I'll just talk them through it. And they're like, wow, nobody's done that. nobody knew what that was. And I'd be like, all right, well, you want to talk? Want to try some Tai Chi? I'm around. So I am usually, word of mouth kind of a person because I'm very introverted. But because of Tim and this film and slightly my students' insistence, I am now trying to get myself out there into the world a little bit more, to help more people.
Well, what you're doing is wonderful. So, and what this film will do too, Tim, is also will be very healing for a lot of people, I believe, and I think that was your intention when you created it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I felt isolated and alone, in Los Angeles, and I wanted to help mitigate that feeling, and the way to do that was to show the tools on how to do that, which leads us back to Kim and the other survivors. So that's the goal.
Let's talk about the 12-year-old boy and the song in the film. Tell our listeners a little bit about his story and the creation of the song.
Oh yeah, Jacob Garrett. He was 12 in the theater, and he stood up when the bullets started flying, and his brother pulled him down. I went to his house. I met them all through the Aurora Center, and I went to his house and wanted to interview with him. He had offered. We kind of sent an email out to say anyone that was interested. And he's just a really magic kid. he was playing piano. He was doing a Rubik's Cube, all this kind of stuff, and towards the end, he was describing to me the challenges of being the shooter boy in school. Suddenly, it was like a notoriety for him, and so constantly bringing him back up. I don't think it was from a mean or bullying place from his fellow students. It was just what it was. But one of his tools to process was doing this sort of slam poetry. It was kind of rap slam poetry. It was just really cool and a good rhythm to it. And so I talked with a friend of mine who was a composer at USC, and then another friend of mine who was a musician on, gosh, I forget the show, Dancing with the Stars, one of those. And I said, can we do something? And then Dylan Chambers is the musician, and he just recorded on his voice notes and sent it to me. He took Jacob's lyrics and then built this melody around it, and then Sean filled it up. And Sean is the composer, Sean Sumwalt, and it's just the most beautiful song, from Jacob Garrett's lyrics to Dylan Chambers' music to Sean Sumwalt's composing. I got them all in there.
Very good.
Yeah.
No, it's a beautiful song. It really is. And to see how he created it, the process he went through, too, also in writing it. And it's great that you took the lyrics and made a beautiful song out of it in the film. I think this film is going to be very healing for a lot of people, and whether you know anybody who's gone through PTSD from such a traumatic experience. And I think you've stated that veterans who've gone through PTSD, it's a different kind of process for them than it is survivors of mass shootings. And unfortunately, as we discussed, there's many more. But where can people see this film?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's entirely different. Just for me, the PTSD part of it, I think there was a veteran on set who said it was actually very healing for him to be on set and be participating. So I think the threads do cross over. It was, for me, I wanted the specificity of it. Could just be my personality, but for the veterans, it does seem to also help. So that's wonderful.
Good to know. Good to hear that. Yes.
Yeah, and that just kept coming up during filming. As far as where to see it, Amazon, iTunes, it should be on most of all digital platforms, but I know those two for sure. Google Play, and it'll be available on the anniversary of Columbine, which is April 20th.
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah. Well, I wish you much success with the film, and everyone seek out Surviving Theater number 9, Theater 9, and it's very enlightening, and it'll give you a different perspective, an insider's perspective on this kind of tragedy. So thank you both for being on the show, and continued success with the work that you're doing, Kim, and also Tim, with your career as you move forward also. So it was a pleasure and an honor to have you both on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us on the show. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. If you've missed any of the Jan Price shows all about movies, you can go to my website, thejanpriceshow.com, where all the shows are archived, and we have a brand new website, so please go check it out. Also, you can listen to the show anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, the iHeart Podcast Network app, Spotify, Google Play. Also, YouTube. Go to our YouTube channel where you can actually see the people that I'm interviewing, which is always fun. And also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Jan Price Show. Thank you all for listening.